for example, I was talking the other day in my church about snake stones to one of the people who was going there, and I was telling them about St. Hilda. I was going into that just to see what they thought of it, really. And
so this is the legend of St. Hilda,
yes,
where her prayers turned this plague of snakes that attacked the town of Whitby into stone.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for the context, Gus. I'm just
no.
I'm used to talking to you and not having to.
Yeah, we talk about stuff all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, so I was talking to them about that story and about the snake stones themselves and being able to go find them. And they it was almost so far removed from the Christianity they knew that it was hard for them to really. It seemed like I was just talking about. It seemed like I was talking about a film or something that was totally detached from.
Yeah. There's a sense in which there's the historicity of Christ. There's the historicity of the Gospels. There's the Christ event. There's his crucifixion, resurrection in history, and that's kind of concrete. And we've got large swathes of Christianity that are people that go to church who are like, yeah, that's real. That's concrete. Jesus was a real person. But when you start entering the symbolic world, using symbols like turning snakes into stone, it's so far removed from them that they can't understand it. And they're almost worried perhaps, oh, you're implying this stuff's fantasy, so I'm not going to go there. Whereas I think the challenge that people like us have got is to really say, let's be quite honest, that the faith has always used imagery to speak of the ineffable. Like, we don't believe, for example, that Genesis 3, the story of the fall, is a scientific document.
Yeah.
We don't. I mean, I know there are plenty of Christians that do, and fair enough, but we don't. And so it's already there. We've got the images of serpents. We've got a deeply, deeply, profoundly true story. Like, I believe that the story is real. The story speaks of God. The story speaks of the fall. The story speaks of humanity's decision to turn away. But it is fundamentally a narrative which uses symbols to communicate something that's so complex in such a simple way. And I think that what we've seen coming in through this kind of narrative way to Christ is that all of these images, all of these archetypes are necessary, and they actually unlock a deeper existence.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the conclusions that at least I've sort of arrived at, is that life is a narrative. I think that we live in narratives, and I think narrative might be the foundational layer of reality. That's everything else is built out of the narratives, because otherwise there's just stuff and no purpose and meaning associated with anything. It's impossible to do anything without the narrative structure. You wouldn't move or do anything if you didn't have any narrative. And I think because of that, to see narrative as fantasy and as something frivolous on the surface, I think that is how I used to view narrative. I didn't watch Lord of the Rings until I was 30, I think.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't grow up. I didn't really like the idea of fantasy because to me it seemed irrelevant.
Yeah.
But I grew up as a material atheist.
It makes the journey, Ryan, that you've come on even more unlikely.
Yeah, it does. But it's just I almost discounted that because to me it seemed like you'd have. I always read non-fiction books because I was like, why would I want to read about something that's not true? But I did it completely back to front. I was like, no, the fiction is where these deep patterns are expressed, and it's like people don't read things if they don't make any sense, and if they don't connect with them. Yeah. So the stories that connect the most are usually the most they have the most meaningful and the most sort of well fleshed out patterns in them. And I think that's what obviously the hero's journey is probably the primary pattern that we see that repeats itself in stories and through narrative. But there's something about being able to connect those narratives with your life, and you start to realize, oh no, all these narratives are playing like I know I kind of can see the basilisk in my own life every now and again. I'm like, oh, there it is again.